Good afternoon, boys and girls. I'm Tonya Arnesen, Senior Pastor of Jackson First United Methodist Church, and this is today's story time for Monday, June the 22nd. We've been reading together from this wonderful book called the Jesus Storybook Bible. Last week, we heard about Jesse's youngest son, David, who God chose to be the new king. Today and again this Thursday, we're going to hear two more wonderful stories about King David. He was very important in the history of Jesus. Let's hear today about the young hero and the horrible giant. I'll show you the pictures first. Okay. God's people had some scary enemies, but the Philistines were the scariest of them all. And now the Philistines had come to fight them. The Philistines had a secret weapon called Goliath. Goliath was a terrifying soldier, and worst of all, a giant. A giant so strong and so tall and so scary that no one had ever been able to fight him and live to tell the tale. So there they were. The Philistines standing on the top of one hill. Here's the Philistines with Goliath. And the Israelites standing on the other hill. They look pretty puny, don't they? There they were. The Philistines standing on the top of one hill, God's people standing on the top of the other. Every day, Goliath came out and shouted, "Send your best soldier to fight me. If he wins, we will be your slaves. If I win, you will be our slaves." No one spoke. No one moved. "Chickens!" Goliath bellowed. "Your God can't save you. I'll rip your heads off and have you on toast." His beady, greedy eyes glowered at them hungrily from under his horrible helmet. Ooh, that's scary, isn't it? As if any minute he really might just gobble them all up. And he laughed his terrible laugh. "Ha, ha, ha," he boomed, echoing horribly around and around the dry, dry valley. Oh my, God's people are in a terrible mess, aren't they? Well, let's see what happens next. Goliath might just as well been a green, slimy monster with 3 heads, because God's people froze with fear. Their eyes glazed over and they turned deathly pale. They knew if someone didn't do something quick, if someone didn't save them, but God would do something. He would send someone to save them. Now you remember that David was the youngest son of Jesse. Well, all of his older brothers were soldiers in the army. One day, when David brought his brothers their lunches, he saw Goliath, and he saw how very scared everyone was. "Don't be afraid," David said. "I'll fight him for you." "You're only a little shepherd boy," the king said, "and Goliath is a great soldier. How will you fight him?" "God will help me," David said. So the king gave David his armor, but it was much too heavy and big for him, so he couldn't even walk. David said, "I don't need this armor," and he took it off. Instead, David went to the stream and picked out 5 smooth stones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And he took his slingshot and walked toward Goliath, step, step, step. Whoa! Isn't that a scary picture? Goliath walked toward David. Thud, thud, thud. You? Goliath peered down at the small boy. I'm little, David shouted up to him, but God is great. Goliath laughed an even terribler laugh than usual. Ha! Ha! It went. With just one swing of his sword, Goliath could finish the boy off. But David kept going. He said, "It's not how big I am that matters. It's how big God is. And God always wins God's battles." David put a stone in his slingshot, and he swung it around and around his head and let it go. The little stone flew whiz like a bullet through the air and struck Goliath, thud, right between the eyes. Well, Goliath stopped laughing. He stumbled and staggered, and he fell down dead. When the Philistines saw Goliath was dead, they ran away. And when God's people saw them running away, they cheered. God had saved his people, and David, young David, was a hero. Many years later, God would save his people another young hero to send for them and to save them. But this hero, and here we're talking about Jesus, aren't we? This hero would fight the greatest battle the world has ever known. When I hear this story, boys and girls, I remember that God makes heroes of all shapes and sizes, of all ages and nations. And it doesn't matter how big or little, or how young or old, or how smart or well educated, or how rich or poor you are. When God sends you to fight his battles, he always wins. Know that God is on your side. And if you will trust him like David trusted God, God will be with you and will help you and save you. I hope that you'll be blessed this week and be well and know you are beloved. On Thursday, we will hear another story about David who will become king. Amen.